19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. It may be watched or participate in the meeting remotely with a meeting link at www.southboroughtown, all one word blurred together.com/remote meetings all together. Okay, the first order of business is approve the minutes of 12/8/2022. Does anybody have any edits, additions, corrections? As I read through them, there was a lot of detail there that I just didn't remember. That was well done.
Sneaky like that.
Looks like we're all good. So do I hear a motion to accept the minutes of 12/8/2022?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote.
Did we just lose someone? 1, 2. Ben. We lost Ben.
Oh, we lost Ben.
Do we want to wait a second to see if he comes back or?
Well, we still have quorum.
Yeah. All right.
In, I don't have them printed here. Was everybody there for 12/8? That's voting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're
All
good.
right. So let's go through. Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
He's still not here. So Pasamato.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's back in the nick of
Here.
time.
There he is.
Maybe.
Thinking about it.
Sorry, I'm having connectivity issues.
That's all right. Okay. Ben, did you want to vote favorably for the minutes or?
Yes, I looked over the minutes, had no edits. Yes.
All right. So Smith is aye as well. So we are all set.
Okay. Great. Okay, next up, request for determination of applicability, 0 Quarterville Road, map 20 lot 10. My understanding is the applicant has withdrawn this application,
Correct.
so there's really no action on our part.
I would just make a motion to withdraw, to accept the withdrawal without prejudice. And so we'll just make a note.
So let's have somebody make a motion to that this has been withdrawn without precedence. Excuse me.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes. Okay, so we've got 7 minutes. So let's take up the new and or continued business of the Liberty Field uses. This is a request from Recreation Commission.
I have Tim Davis and Jen Hansen, who's the chair of Recreation as well. So they're just going to load in for a second.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Thank you. So we want to come in front. So I know a while back we talked about Liberty Field for an alternative use of a playground, and there was talks about that. But we wanted to speak with you all as you do hold the deed and the conservation restriction around Liberty Field. The Recreation Department has spent the last 3 years, arguably, kind of getting all of our fields in town back online, doing some work successfully to bring them back up to speed to where they need to be. And we're at the point now where all of our fields are functional, which means now we're at the point where we can implement a resting schedule for these fields so we can take care of them. One of the main components of making sure the resting is successful is the use of Liberty for sports practices and public use when it comes to our use groups in town. Being proactive, we were looking over the conservation restriction and that deed that we had in our possession. And we wanted to just ask for some determination and opinion and clarification really from this body about if that field can be used for soccer, specifically soccer practices. Just because it does say, we understand it explicitly says use for a soccer field, but at the same time, it does say passive recreation. So I know there may be a history with neighbors and some arguments around this. But Jen and I wanted to just come tonight and float that by you all, and see if there was historical context we could share, but also hopes to get a clear picture of what is determined by that deed, and just so that we're all on the same page of the use of that field. And Jen, I didn't know if you want to add anything.
Nope, you captured it.
And I can bring up that section if it would be helpful for commissioners that has that restriction about it.
For what it's worth, I'm very familiar with this field. And I guess having been on the board for so long, maybe, and when that field got built, and one of the biggest, I don't want to say complaints, but I'm going to use the word complaints, so I have another word, was the parking in the neighborhood for games that were played there for the use of soccer. So because of that reason, it was sort of lowered in terms of its tier of use to like tier 2 or tier 3, and try to use other fields in town in favor of that because of the parking issue over there in the neighborhood and so forth. But that field was originally built, that was open space, and it was intended for the use of passive recreation and soccer. Thus, the deed states that. My son, when he was smaller, he played soccer games there, historically. So historically, that has been used for that, but to accommodate the neighborhood and parking, it was sort of lowered down in the priority of its usage, if you will, if that makes sense. And I'll just park that, just some history from me. And I'll open up the other commissioners and questions.
Melissa, do you have the deed on hand? If you could just throw it up just real quickly.
So this, where's my mouse? This particular section right here is what we're talking about. So it is parcel B, and I have the plans too if you want to see, but I have verified it is where the field is. And it does state for passive recreational purposes, including but not limited to the construction of a soccer field with accompanying improvements.
Thank you.
And Mark, I guess to celebrate that point, I think the rec department did do that. We did scale back the use of that field. We're using this field as only, again, a necessity of resting others. So we're not looking to completely take a field offline for years to now put all the action onto Liberty. This is more of just an auxiliary field for some overflow as we deal with seasonal rest. So we wouldn't be going completely full time on this field. It would just be used as needed.
Yeah,
Are you looking to use this as practices or games as well?
So I'm like, so right now it's like at the very least, like yes, practices to be able to move some traffic over there. I think what we're looking for you guys is based on this restriction, what can it or can't it be used for like legally? And then I think the other layer on top of it becomes like, well, what should we do as a good neighbor, good community? What's like safe with parking? Like we can have those conversations with public safety as well. So, and that's where, but I think that's where the clarity from you guys is like, what is in and out of scope here? Like, what could we legally do or not do on here? And that's where like you guys hold that authority to determine that or look into it further for us. And then I think there's a lot of other conversations afterwards about like, okay, well, now that we know what that answer is, like it's not our intent to disrupt the neighborhood or make them upset or things like that, but just really need to understand legally, what does this actually mean for us?
Yeah, I mean, from my read of the deed, soccer use is acceptable, right? Now it comes down to being a good neighbor and how we work within the neighborhood. And previously, it was scaled back because some of the older travel teams were using it, and you had out-of-town people coming in and using it, and really a lot of disregard for the neighborhood and the people that were living there. So I think that there needs to be somewhat of a compromise, even though the deed said, yeah, go ahead and play soccer here. you know, what are the age groups? Is it going to be games? Is it going to be practices, travel teams? You know, there needs to be, I think, sort of a, you know, a neighborhood partnership sort of feel to it. That's my opinion, even though the deed says go ahead and use it.
And that is purely our intent, right? Like, so like, I don't want to say anything that says we can't someday say we need to play a game on there, but the intent is to move maybe some of the younger kids over there for a practice here and there, or like smaller, like it would mostly be like our teams on there for that kind of activity. It's not suitable for the older students to be playing full games on there, like and stuff like that. That's not the intent. At least like right now as we stand and why we're looking into this. So
Is there any intent to install, you know, benches for players to sit on, or just use the field as an open space as it is now?
we don't do that currently on the fields. Like players bring their own chairs and stuff like that for like
Yeah,
sidelines.
okay.
So nothing permanently installed there. Like Tim, my guess is like the biggest would be potentially lining it, right? So
Yeah,
maybe
it'd
we'd
be-
actually line the soccer field for them.
Lining it and possible goals, which are not permanent structures that we can put on and take off as needed.
Yep.
You know, when you say line it, you mean, you know, running the machine down with white chalk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions from other members or comments?
No, just other than the idea of running it by public safety sounds like a fantastic idea. And your plan sounds completely reasonable.
Yeah, I can tell you, going back a number of years when we were using the field, that, you know, the chaos of dropping kids off and taking off to other fields for other sporting events with different children and stuff, and, you know, 3-point turns and cars parked on both sides, you know, brought a lot of angst to the neighborhood, which is why it got, you know, sort of tiered back or scaled back in terms of its usage.
That's, I think, definitely something that Tim and I can work on in terms of frequency and kind of getting that schedule to see what's working and what's not. So if we need an adjustment in the future, I'm hoping Recreation would be able to come back and talk with us again. You know, if we do need to modify, you know, not necessarily an agreement, but, you know, kind of see how the practices go, the frequency, if the abutters are having concerns, and then we'll kind of readjust as time kind of moves on.
You know, not to tell you how you do your jobs and so forth, because, you know, you guys are the experts, but maybe even thinking about having a half an hour break between the usage of the field so people can leave and then people can come, that might help.
Yeah.
Right. So something like that, just kind of think out of the box maybe a little bit.
Sure.
So just to be good neighbors.
Yeah. And we're opening up permitting in February to get an idea what the spring may look like. So I'm happy to share with Melissa that schedule of who we'll have on that field, just so that everyone's on the same page.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? No. So I think, you know, the deed's pretty clear that soccer usage is permitted, as well as passive recreation. So, you know, I think you're in the clear there.
Great. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
welcome. Have a good night.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, next up is continued stormwater management permit, notice of intent, 200 Turnpike Road, map 28, lot 3C. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough, excuse me a second. Here we go. In accordance with the provision of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaws, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, January 5, 2023 at 7:10 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of CMJ Ventures LLC for construction of warehouse space, salt shed, and other site improvements at 200 Turnpike Road. Map 28, lot 3C.
Good evening, Peter Bemis, Engineering Design here. So
Happy
we
New
don't
Year.
have a, hi, and you as well, all of you. So I wanted to just be able to present an update because we still don't have peer review comments back from Fuss and O'Neill or Lucas. But just to give the commission an overview of the site plan, we have it reissued with a 12/16 date. It's an 8-plan set. We did address Fuss and O'Neill's comments, and probably the only one that I really would like to focus on from those, because it has been coming up each time and it would require you folks to weigh in on it, is the, and probably Ben is the best person to understand my dilemma because of stormwater calculations being the way they are in HydroCAD. We have an existing condition with a gravel soil. So we have a fairly good percolation rate and fairly low curve numbers. And we've got a very small watershed that we are making even smaller. But because of the way you look at a land use category and how things come back out, there's a rounding in the way the calculation gets done. We've looked at this in HydroCAD, I don't know how many times. I just can't get the number to be the same. I think we have, I can't remember exactly what the number is, but I want to say that it's like 20 cubic feet of more volume, which is really nothing. But we just don't have a way of making it go to the same amount. I believe the rate of runoff was the same, but it's this volume that gets calculated. So I would ask that you at least consider that. We're asking you for a waiver from it because we don't have the ability to address it in this small watershed. We did also find that in our calculation, we forgot to divide by 12, but we still had a drawdown calculation that was well within the thresholds for DEP stormwater management guidelines. And then we just had to correct one elevation for cover. So there was really only 3 items left with Fuss and O'Neill, and we addressed them all. So that should be straightforward. On the Lucas Environmental, there were a lot of items. These predated us. They go back to Santora's plan, Mark Santora's plan, but they just still carried forward with the project. And probably the most important one was that the comment was regarding wetland flags as you got on the eastern side of our site. And this is at the back of the DPW garage. So what's happening is the DPW is improved out like on a neck, if you will, and that neck overlooks our site, and there's a valley in between. So runoff basically from DPW kind of comes down in this little valley in between the 2 sites, and has created basically a wetland that's extending to the southwest, closer to us. So we went out and did put 2 flags in. We did not want to touch the flags that Mark Santora set because the existing conditions plan for this project is his plan. And we weren't going to issue a new plan. So what we've done is made a 19B and 20B, which are ours. And those are identified on the site plan now. We did put a 20-foot, 50-foot, and 100-foot buffer zone to those, and it does not impact the project as we had proposed it. There are activities that are closer, but they still observe your local requirements. Then the only other one was, again, for Lucas, was that they were identifying these resource areas that are beyond the work limits of the site. We do have a very awkward looking lot line here. We go out on, again, another neck, if you will, going towards the west at Middle Road and Route 9. And there are wetland resource areas there. We're not looking for the commission to have certified any of those with this application. The driveway does get close to wetlands that are on our abutters lot 206. But again, we're not doing any work there either. So I am asking you to allow us to leave the line the way it's flagged and identified. And then you can put any sort of restriction you want in your order when you're so inclined to grant it, that it acknowledges that we're not asking for that, or just ties it to what's shown on the plan. We're fine with that. We did include wetland buffers that are on our abutters property because we did work on 206. And we do have a note to that effect that this is an old line. It's really there just for reference purposes only. Trying to remember if there was anything else that really needed to be. Oh, there was some administrative things on fees. if there's fees that are lacking on this, I'll make sure that CMJ makes those fee payments before the next meeting. And we did ask that you'd consider not allowing us to update documents we didn't prepare, because there were a number of maybe transposing errors and things like that that the Santora application had made. But again, we didn't make it, and I don't have the ability to change it without creating a new document all over again. We did add an invasives management plan because Lucas had asked for that, so you have that. We also agreed with the comments about the netting. We've used some of those products with the cocoa mats in them, and they have this netting, and the netting's terrible. It doesn't biodegrade properly. So we're going to use jute on these slopes. We'll put down the jute, and then we'll hydroseed on top of it. It works really well. And we also went with the biodegradable sock for the compost sock at the bottom of work. I just want to put it in, put the silt fence in. We'll pull the silt fence out, but leave the sock and let it break down in place. That's it. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we'll see you in 3 weeks to try to wrap this up.
All right, thank you, Peter.
Could I just ask you real quickly just about that volume issue? Did you
Yeah.
did you take full credit for the stone void volume at the bottoms of your infiltration?
It's not that one. It's not that watershed. It's the one that goes to the west. So it's really the one that goes in this direction. And we have this very limited activity, and we cut off that area. So it stands to reason that it should be less. But I don't get HydroCAD sometimes. I wonder if there's like a floating error in one of the way he does his calculations in his formulas. So
And it's
you know what? I'll send it to you, Ben. Maybe you'll know where the problem is.
I'd be curious to take a look. If it's not
Okay.
a ground cover, like not a ground cover issue, a weird curve.
No, I've asked Walter about it a couple of times, and he says it's not gonna be the same. I don't know how to make it go away. So yeah, I'd encourage, please, if you don't mind looking at it, I'd be happy to send it to you, and maybe you'll see that we're overlooking something.
I'd love to. And then the worst case scenario is I see that, it's not resolvable through the software, but it's not an actual practical error. And I can recommend, if that's the case, that we do issue a waiver.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I appreciate the
Sure.
opportunity.
That's all that I had.
Anybody else have anything? Questions? Anything to add?
Okay.
No?
Then I'll see you in 3 weeks.
Okay, we'll see you in 3 weeks, Peter.
Yeah, and then Joe, you have the comments, so anytime you can get to that, I'll get them right back to you. Thank you.
Through the chair, yeah, I apologize with the holidays. I wasn't able to get to it. I have looked them over. I do have some comments, which I hope to get to you next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I do need a motion to continue to the next hearing.
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
And that date is, Melissa?
It is January 26th.
Okay, thank you. Is that 3 weeks? Yeah?
21 days.
Okay, do I hear a,
I think we got a second. We're good. All right. Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Osmato.
yes,
All right.
Okay, good night, folks.
Thanks, Pete.
thank you. Okay, next up, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southwood Wetlands Bylaw, the Southwood Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 5, 2023 at 7:20 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for project located on ROW within Turnpike Road and Cordova Road, map 28, lot 21, the applicant Jennifer Bottaro for Eversource Energy. The project description is for replacement and isolation of gas main infrastructure within the ROW.
Good evening, Southborough Commission. My name is Travis Yando. I'm here representing Eversource for this project. Melissa, thanks for admitting me here. I just want to share my screen if that's okay.
You should be able to, yep.
All right, great. Thank you. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Great. So like I said, my name is Travis Yando. I work for SWCA as a project wetland scientist and PWS for there, representing Eversource for the notice of intent here for the proposed gas main installation project on the Route 9 and Route 85 Southborough. Project location is along the Turnpike Road, Route 9, and Corridor Road, Route 85 in Southborough, between Parkerville Road and Eversource's existing service center. The specific locations will show on a map here in a second, but all the proposed work is located within the existing paved roadway layout. Here's some snippets from the ER map that was provided in the NOI application. So the work will start here at Parkerville Road, where the red line is indicating. These green areas are the wetlands that were delineated. Blue is streams with their associated buffers, the 100-foot buffer and the 25-foot local no disturb zone. As we move to the east, the red line continues. We start running into a riverfront area, bordering land subject to flooding. And then it turns onto the off-ramp onto corridor or Route 85 to the service center, which is right here, the Eversource Service Center. In terms of resource areas that I already kind of mentioned on, this project is proposed within the bordering land subject to flooding, 200-foot riverfront area with associated unnamed perennial stream that connects those two water bodies. The 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and bank. Southborough's locally regulated 20-foot no disturbance zone. And then in specific regulations for this project, so the activities within the 100-foot buffer zone and the 200-foot are considered minor buffer zone exemptions or activities. And then also the work within the bordering land subject to flooding is not considered a minor buffer zone activity. Therefore, this is why we are submitting the NOI. Additionally, the proposed activities are located within Southborough's 20-foot no disturbance zone. So working with Melissa, we just kind of, she had requested or recommended that we submit an NOI for this project due to that no disturbance zone area. In terms of project details, so the pipe installation work will consist of approximately 3,917 linear feet of a 12-inch plastic intermittent pressure gas main. And then at the connection points right here, let me go back to the map here. The connection points right here will consist of 200 linear feet of 4-inch diameter plastic, and then also another 100 linear feet of the 6-inch diameter plastic and 64 linear feet of the 4-inch diameter plastic piping for there. Additionally, Eversource proposes to replace the Distich underground regulator that's on Route 85 near the Eversource Service Center. That area is located right here. In terms of construction details, so all the piping will be installed via a conventional open trench direct bury method. So that involves excavating a 24 to 48-inch trench, side casting the spoils, laying down the pipe, joining them together, and then everything backfilled at the end of the day, backfilled or steel. At the joints, can take a little bit longer where they reconnect. So they may have to plate those areas, but it'll only be for like a day or two. The rest of the trench will be backfilled at the end of each day. In terms of the regular station replacement, it involves retiring the regulator station that's already located at that Eversource Service Center, and then upgrading it to a basically a 3-vault installing it so it'd be 3 vaults in there and with telemetry cabinets as well. This is all on Eversource's parcel. And I'll kind of explain the reason behind this in the next slide. As I said before, construction will begin at Parkerville Road and work east and then south on Route 85. So the project purpose, so Eversource has their own internal like gas assessment and risk management program. And with looking at this section of the pipe and the existing regulator stations, they have evaluated and ranked the risk that regulator station and that piping is not in a condition that is sustainable. So the project is intended to address the deteriorating pipe with the core critical valve accessibility, and then also relocate or reallocate the capacity of the Crystal Pond regulator station. So that's the one near the Parkerville side of the project. So with that, the Crystal Pond district regulator has been identified and would like to be retired and removed, and then a new regulator station will be located directly at that Eversource service center.
So the Crystal Pond regulator isn't near Crystal Pond?
Yeah, so it's near the Parkerville. So there's 2. Let me try to explain this a little bit better. It'd be better if I have the maps here. So there's a regulator
It
station
is at
near-
Crystal Pond. Yes.
Yeah,
Crystal
there's a
Pond
regulator-
Road. Yeah. It's
Which is
further
way
down
over the hill on
road.
the other side, going
Yeah,
west.
it's further down the road, a little
Yeah,
confusing.
okay.
Yeah, there's 2, sorry. Let me turn on my video so I can introduce myself. There we go. Hi, I'm Jen
Hello.
Vitaro. I'm from Eversource Licensing and Permitting. Just want to kind of explain that a little bit better. There are a couple regulator stations underground down Route 9 on Corderville, Crystal Pond Road. And those are also aging, as well as the one that's in front of Eversource on Corderville Road. So those all need to be retired, and they're going to be replaced with a new upgraded system on the Eversource property. So that will take place of all the retired ones. And this system gap this new line to close the gap will close all of that loop there, and the new regulator station will account for all of that.
So we don't have to be worried at all about the Crystal Pond regulator and any work down by Crystal Pond.
No, it's not in any
Okay.
resource area. It's going to be retired. There was, I guess last year there was an accident, and it's not a safe area. It's a traffic nightmare over there. So they want to
You aren't
retire
kidding.
it for safety reasons. Yeah. So better be safe. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen, for clearing that up.
No problem.
So in terms of impacts, all the impacts here would be temporary. So we have about 2,100 square feet to bordering land subject to flooding, about 1,100 square feet to riverfront area, and then approximately 4,300 feet to buffer zone. And then to the local regulated 20-foot would be 700 square feet. So the temporary impacts will be already existing paved along the roadway and restored to pre-construction conditions. And the area where the regulator station will be installed, there's 2 vaults right here that will be removed. And then basically the existing impacts will then be similar to what is proposed in the buffer zone. So those 2 vaults will be removed and replaced with the 2 that are in the buffer zone. So in terms of some best management practices, I included a bunch of specs, Eversource's specs in our application, but no work behind the erosion controls, no storage of fuels overnight in the 100-foot buffer zone. Project materials will be laid down outside of the resource areas, mostly right there at Eversource's service center. Good housekeeping, we have spill kits on site all the time. And then erosion controls and catch basin inlet protection would be installed prior to work commencing. Additionally, we have the erosion controls in yellow that show where those erosion controls are proposed. And then all the restoration, like I said, will include repaving the surfaces and to pre-construction conditions. And then SWCA will be out there weekly for inspections. It's pretty convenient for us because our office is right next to Eversource's service center. So we're right there on site pretty much every day. In terms of conclusion, so the project is anticipated to commence in mid-January, depending on DEP numbers and peer review. But approximately 12 weeks to complete. BMPs will be implemented for the duration of the project. The project is proposed to be accessed and performed within the roadway, and only temporary impacts are proposed. We'll also perform a pre-construction compliance training as well, just so we're on the same page as the contractors that are actually doing this work, and they are knowledgeable and educated about the order conditions. So at this time, we don't have a DEP number. I just checked as of 20 minutes ago, and then I'm not entirely sure on Lucas Environmental peer review as well on the status of that. So we just wanted to provide the information as much as possible to address any questions, help prolong this for the next hearing, and kind of help smooth things out a little bit.
All right, thank you. So first question I have is, we're rolling into winter and snow plowing and all that kind of stuff, and you're gonna tear up Route 9. So how do you propose of being able to, deal with the disturbance of, Route 9 and then up the exit ramp and down 85 during the winter months when we've got, frost and snow and salt and the need to plow and all that sort of stuff? It seems to me like it's not a great time of year to do this.
I think to answer your question, this is an important project for Eversource, so they're going to do what they can, obviously, while the weather's nice, because it is nice right now for winter.
Until tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what's going to happen. So they work as much as they can, the construction crews, and they'll be getting their DOT permit. I think they have their permit. They're just waiting on the traffic management plan to be approved. So they work closely with the DOT for Route 9, and obviously they have a lot of constraints too. So, and then also the town for the road opening permit on Route 85, I believe. But they only work when they can, obviously. So if it's too much frost, they can't really do too much, but they're going to do as much as they can.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to just address was the 20-foot no touch, or no disturb zone. I assume that when you went through your presentation, you were really talking about the area that's just at Parkerville Road and moving towards the east, towards along Cadillac.
Yeah, you want to show where that is on the plan, Travis?
Sure.
And I'm sure that's the reasoning is because, as you can imagine, there are a lot of utilities in these areas, so they could only place them where there's available space.
Yeah, so looking at this diagram, go back.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you have Parkerville Road there, kind of the left of the screen, you got the red line, and you have that intersection of Parkerville and Route 9, and we travel east along Route 9, correct?
Yes.
So the 20-foot disturbance area is going to be in that area there, correct?
Yeah, we'll touch here, and I think the biggest portion is right along here.
Okay, so so for the area near Parkerville Road, just for the commission's sort of history, when Parkerville Road, when Route 9 was redone, Jersey barriers put in, it was widened and they put a acceleration lane there. And that acceleration lane was put in and a 20-foot waiver was provided by this commission at that point in time for that section, for that work to be done, guardrail work, et cetera, et cetera. I'm unaware of any 20-foot waiver that the commission ever issued or was asked to issue on 85 Corderville Road. Melissa, are you thinking that one waiver request for both or a waiver request for each is required?
I think just one waiver request for the project in general, because it is within the roadway itself.
Mhm.
So I think it can be captured in one holistic waiver,
Okay,
as long as the commission is okay with that. Usually we just specify either through wetland flags or whatnot, or if they're labeled, series A, B, where those specific 20-foot areas are.
yeah, okay. Yeah, there is some precedent on the Route 9 section that I mentioned before. I'm unaware of the Route 85, but there may be there as well. I don't know. Okay,
Take a look to see what we've done on 85.
I'm all done with my questions for now. Anybody else on the commission?
Travis, I just have a really quick comment. The owners of 120 Turnpike just reached out to me today. I don't know if you guys have started to phase some equipment along Parkerville, but there's an access road from Parkerville into the parking lot of 120 Turnpike Road that looks like it had been utilized, and they were just concerned if that was Eversource coming in and out of that little dirt access road, because the commission has brought up very recently some erosion issues there. So just to keep that in mind, that little entrance.
Yeah,
If-
no problem. Jen,
Can you
I
repeat
don't think we've.
Which
I don't-
location? Sorry, I just want to write that down.
It's 120 Turnpike.
Yeah,
Is
we
that-
haven't started any mobilizing any equipment. The construction crews have met out there just to do a walk down and look at the area, but nobody has mobilized equipment.
Okay.
Okay.
They're just trying to figure out who was ripping
Yep.
through their little side access
I got
Is that
you.
this location, Melissa, right here?
across the street.
Across the street?
wait.
Oh, okay.
No,
No,
you're
no.
right.
Oh,
Sorry,
you're
you're
right.
right. Yep.
You're right, over
So
here.
there's a little right pretty much where your mouse is. There's a little just dirt path.
Okay.
That's now got some new ruts in it. So they reached out to me today just to let us know, because we brought some concerns about usage there, that it wasn't them, and they're just wondering who might have been dropping some stuff off there. I think there's maybe one of the sign trailers are there, I think.
Okay, all right. I know I did the delineation myself, and I know when we did the delineation in this area, there was some equipment here, but I don't know who it was pertaining
Yeah,
to.
they were working on 125 Parkerville, so there's some like construction equipment there, but this seemed like road
Road work.
work. Yeah.
That equipment arrived late yesterday afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
And
I can double check with our construction team just to make sure.
yeah, so it arrived late yesterday afternoon. It consisted of a bunch of stuff. I live just down the street from that. That's why I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And
So
they
do I. I
parked in,
can corroborate this. It's a lot of equipment.
yeah, and Elizabeth, it was dangerously parked, in my opinion, as coming off of Route 9 on the Parkerville.
Yes,
right?
I concur with that.
Yeah. And, I was coming home from my kid's house last night and I came down that and took the turn, and they got these cones and it's foggy. It's like, oh my gosh, what is all this stuff? A lot of equipment. And I have no idea what they're doing.
Yes, I can check for you, definitely.
Thank you.
That kind of brings up another thing that our team wanted us to ask, because Lucas Environmental didn't finish the peer review, and because DEP didn't give us a file number for this meeting, we were hoping to have closed out and have a permit by the end of this meeting. So they were wondering if it was okay if they could start work on the Parkerville Ave area that you see here on the plan that is outside jurisdiction, and do a few assessment test holes along the project route just to locate utilities. And those are only day test holes, just for a day. Yeah.
Are you referring to the north side of Route 9, that area?
Yeah, so basically across Route 9 where you see the red line go north to south there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that area.
Well, certainly that's outside our jurisdiction.
Yeah. So we just
Um,
wanted to let you guys know, so you didn't think we were starting work in any jurisdictional areas without a permit, that they were gonna do some things in that area over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, now be advised that just north of the end of your red line, as you get
Yep.
into that residential neighborhood, there is a wetland between that parking lot and that house. Right there.
Here,
And the house that looks like a green blob on the left.
I think that is the
that's the old
wetland.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Then go up, go north.
oh, okay, here,
No, come
No,
back
I-
south. Go
Mark, I
right.
There
think
is
that
a
green
wetland
blob is
map.
the
There you go.
wetland.
this right
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
I think
In
that is
that
the
area.
wetland.
Yeah, so we
Sorry,
we,
Melissa?
we
I think
captured
The
that.
wetland.
Yeah,
That light green is
Travis,
the-
could you zoom in and show them the
Yeah.
wetland is delineated there?
Yeah, so we flagged this wetland mark.
Okay, you did.
Yeah.
I know it was hard to see zoomed out, but it is, looks like
Sorry
a
about
house,
that.
but it's a wetland.
Well, that used to be where their hockey rink was, so
Oh, gotcha.
for that house.
Wow.
I don't know if that was it or not. Okay.
So just to confirm, we're all set to start here outside jurisdictional and do a few test holes down the line as well.
When you say down the line, where,
Yeah.
They
That-
didn't say specifically where, they just said in the roadway just to locate utilities, which is what they normally do before anyone even files for a permit, just to locate utilities, because when you do a dig safe, they're not always accurate. So they always have to do test holes to make sure and confirm. So they just
But-
wanted to let us know that they were going to be doing that, so no one thought they were doing construction for this project without the permit.
I mean, if you're outside of the 100-foot BVW, then you're fine. We have no jurisdiction over that.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure you were aware in case somebody said, hey, they're doing all this work and they didn't have a permit yet. So we just wanted you to know.
yeah, I guess, just to mitigate risk,
Mhm.
we're all assuming that the permit's going to come through and you'll be approved and receive a permit, but you're going to go off and do this work with a potential,
Mhm.
a low possibility that you might not get a permit, right? I don't think that's going to happen, but that's that's a risk you take. So we're gonna have to continue until next hearing because there's no DEP number. We can't close out without that. And any other comments or questions from commission members and or the public? If the public has any questions, raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
not see any.
Not seeing any, okay. Do I hear a motion to continue to January 6th, Melissa?
26th,
Oh, 26.
So
not tomorrow.
I meant to say 26.
All right, Liz moved.
Yeah, do I hear a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Zulik,
yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Passamoto.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Next up is 184 Woodland Road, certificate of compliance, DEP number 290-1080. I'm going to excuse myself. I have to put the dog out. Sorry.
All right, if we continue without you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The door, he needs to go out. I'll be right back.
So I did the quick review for this one. It was just a septic replacement near BBW. And it has fully grown in, stabilized. The Board of Health, I believe, has signed off their final. I know he at least dropped his as-built off with them as well. So everything has gone smoothly. There was some yard waste that was historically there between two wetland flags that has been removed as well as one of the ongoing conditions. So my recommendation is the commission issue the certificate of compliance for this property.
Any questions, comments, concerns? And if not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
All right, Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
And Smith.
yes.
So I don't see Mark back yet.
All right. Let's see, 139 Deerfoot, okay?
So this one, I'm still gonna bring the site super in just in case, and if we have any questions. But 139 Deerfoot, this is towards the end of the street. This is just a wetlands permit. The only thing we had been waiting on, Matt had done this review prior to him leaving, but there was a stormwater basin at the front of the property that needed to be installed that had not when the request for COC was submitted. So based on the design that we did kind of at 141 Deerfoot next door, kind of a landscaped constructed kind of swale. We did very similar at 139 and that turned out very successfully. So I am recommending that the commission also issue a certificate of compliance for this one.
Okay. Questions or comments?
So that's because they couldn't get an easement on the neighboring property. Is that okay?
Yeah, so originally that was the intent because the builder owned all of the lots and then he decided not to develop the lot next door, sold it to another developer. So he doesn't own that property any longer. So they made it all on the property of 139. They have the operation and maintenance plan. Everything is set to roll.
Okay. Yep, that was a condition in the original order. Is that anything that gets in the way of this, or is that just the COC take care of it?
But wait. Can you say that one more time?
The original order conditions had an explicit condition saying that the easement would be obtained and registered. Does the COC just kind of erase that if we approve this?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a finding of fact stating that there is no easement and that the stormwater system remains solely on the property of 139.
Okay.
All right, so Mark's back.
Yep, I'm back. It sounds like you're at 139 Deerfoot now?
Yep.
What happened to 184 Woodland?
We approved it.
Oh, okay, thank you. That was fast. And 139 Deerfoot is up. I think I caught Kevin's comments.
Yep, so the stormwater system is in the front that the commission required as it was on the approved site plan. So all of it is located on 139 Deerfoot. So now that they're in full compliance, my recommendation is to issue the full COC finally.
Okay. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Osmato.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, moving down the list. Now it's a COC for 4 Printer Street, DEP number 290-911.
This one is from a while ago. It's over 10 years. So this one has they had requested a COC previously back in 2013. This stemmed from some violations that occurred with tree cutting towards the front of the property. So the commission held off on that certificate of compliance at that time until the plantings in the front were installed and mowing ceased along the stream edge and some invasive removal. So I was working with the homeowner and I actually reached out to Chris Lucas because he was involved in the original COC request and NOI to make sure that the plant list was still sufficient that she could choose from. So those have been installed, and I did verify the invasive removal and that mowing has ceased outside of the fence area. So I'm happy to report that I would recommend that the commission issue this certificate of compliance, long awaited.
It's definitely an old one, that's for sure.
Now, you don't think 9/11 would be that old, but it is. And I saw 2013, I was like, oh gosh, okay.
Yeah, so any questions, comments? No. Okay, do I hear a motion to issue the COC for 4 Printer Street?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Aye. Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Palsmato.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, next one on the list is a COC for 2 Hidden Meadow Road, 290-1077.
This is one that Joe did, and the Representative Mitch is here to answer any questions and respond.
Okay. So I guess, Joe, you're up.
Yeah, I did review the response to our memo, which was submitted today. And I think pretty much all the items were addressed. 2 remaining items under comment number 2, the submitted narrative was not prepared, apparently not prepared or signed by a PE, which was required under the order of conditions. And then the question on the trees that were cut down, the 4 trees, I understand maybe that the commission had already discussed this and was okay with it. Is that correct, Melissa?
We had discussed it previously, and kind of as a finding that, yeah, they did come down. I wasn't sure about the timing. I know, Mitch, you said that some might have been done by a previous owner, some by this owner. And I think I see the owner here in the attendees if we have any questions for him as well.
And other than that, I think all the comments were addressed.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from commission members? No. Okay. So are we ready to issue a COC? All right, do I hear a motion to issue a COC for 2 Hidden Meadow Road?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Zulik,
I think I have to abstain because I'm a neighbor.
thank you.
Oh,
Farrington,
okay,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Palsmato.
yes.
So glad you remembered because clearly I didn't.
I'm proud of
All
myself.
right. Mitch, I should probably get this to you tomorrow, if not on Monday.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Commission.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay, next one down the list is a COC for 124 Deerfoot Road.
Let me bring over first Brendan Holmes and the engineer. And I know that some of the abutters are here as well. John, maybe if you wanted to start with an overview and get us up to speed.
Yeah, be happy to. For the record, John Cusick with Bowler Engineering. This project has been around for quite some time. We were before the commission a while back. I apologize, I don't remember exactly when it was, but we had went through and submitted a request for certificate of compliance. The Fuss and O'Neill had went through and reviewed everything They had one minor comment on their review, which we since have addressed. Essentially, we put up an elbow in the detention basin. At that point, just based on some of the neighborhood concern from our direct abutter, you just asked us to go to the select board and see if there was anything we could do to further address any comments that they had. We did do that. At that meeting with the select board, we actually agreed to put an additional swale / French drain on the property, which has been done and constructed. And at this point, all of the Fuston O'Neill comments have been done and addressed. And we've went above and beyond. We actually added a swale. I think the comment was there was concern with what was called water draining onto the abutting property. But again, this particular property it's on a hill. It drains onto the abutter property. So the original application reduced the rate and volume of runoff heading to the abutters as we needed to per the regulations. Adding this swale goes above and beyond that as well. So it was asked of us, and that is what has been done. So at this point, I believe we've addressed all of the Fuston O'Neill comments. We've completed what we brought up at the selectmen hearing that we said we were going to do, and the work is complete, and we're just looking to close out the project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments here from the commission with respect to this?
I guess I had a question about the
Yeah.
swale that was added, and there's talk about a French drain. I couldn't find those on the as-built plans.
It's too small to come up. I had the same comment when he first did it. So the elevation is just too small to see it on that
Okay.
scale of a plan, but it was something that we did address. Thank you. But it is, if you want to know where it is, because it's kind of like a pork chop lot. So that there's the long skinny driveway, and where it cuts across the back of 122 is where that swale is / French drain. It's one and the same.
And that catches the water coming down the hill and routes it to the south?
Yeah, I can share a plan if it's helpful.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay. Hold on a second. This is the as-built.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, hold on one moment, please. Did that show up, or the as-built?
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's really tiny. I don't know if you can make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah, let's see, bear with me. Blow it up to that area here.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me do this. I'll try to do it even further. Okay, so this is under the existing conditions, everything kind of flowed in this direction this way. When we developed the lot, we actually captured some of that water and directed it this way. So we actually reduced the amount of flow that was heading to the property. The French drain and swale, we actually added it right about here. And I apologize for the pop-ups. I don't know how to stop that. And then it discharges around the corner here. So it then comes down this way. So it all eventually will get to the same spot on the street. But this now will, and the catch basin's right here. It now just diverts more water this way as opposed to this way.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Melissa, my understanding is we've had Fuston O'Neill review this to verify that there's compliance with the S&P permit.
Yep, correct. Yeah, they did some other minor fixes like the downspouts, just making sure those were connected, etc. For everything settled. So those have all been completed. I think maybe 2 years ago at this point, when Pat was still here.
Okay. All right. Any questions from commission members? No. I see a hand raised, Melissa.
Yep. Are you all set for me to?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Lisa, you should be able to speak
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
Sure can.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you today. So my name is Lisa Dunderdale. I live at 122 Deerfoot Road, and our lot abuts 124. And I believe you all should have received my email yesterday notifying you that that my husband and I are asking you to not approve the certificate of completion because we still have excessive amounts of water coming onto our lot from 124. I included a video of that water. The water off that lot is not making it to the drain. After reviewing all of the information, and I certainly have probably 2.5 years of talking with the commission about water trespass. We knew that there was a swale there prior to the Fuss and O'Neill review. They said that they were going to correct that swale so that it was functioning properly. Prior to that, there was no French drain. I didn't see any mention of a French drain. And at this point, the water's not even making it to the French drain. I'm not sure when they dug the French drain, if something happened to the lay of the land, that now this water is coming down past the wall that's there. It's a fence that's there. And so we're still getting a lot of water. So is the abutter at 120. I don't know if she's here to speak, but we continue to have issues. I also had mentioned to Melissa, now that the French drain is in place, I didn't see anything on the maintenance plan. If that needs to be cleaned out on a regular basis. So I'm asking you to not approve this. And I'm hoping that the commission will work with the builder, the owners, to correct this water runoff that is streaming onto our lots. And you can see that it's streaming through right to our front yards. We've never had this issue before.
Okay, so you're saying that the water is not making it to this, manufactured, engineered swale that we were just looking at on the plan. It's bypassing that.
Yeah, it's coming right underneath. It's coming right underneath the stockade fence that they've put up. So I can't even really tell you what's going on behind that fence. But I know that the water's coming underneath the fence.
Okay. Bowler, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, yep, I can certainly comment to that. Again, as I stated originally, just the way the topography is, we're uphill of that lot. So there's always an amount of water that has gone from the uphill lot to the downhill lot. It's just the way that works. The original calculations showed that with the proposed development, there would be less water. It would not eliminate water. There would just be less water, and that's really the burden that you have to do under the stormwater regulations. After that, we did add the swale. Again, the developer wanted to be a good neighbor and heard the concerns, so they did add that French drain. I'll share my screen again just so everybody can see a picture of it. But that is the drain. Oops, hold on. Apologies. That's the drain right here. So you can see kind of at the bottom of the slope as everything comes down, it hits this stone area. Within that stone area, there's actually filter fabric and a pipe. That pipe wraps around the fence. Is there water that's still going to go through there during larger storms? Certainly there will be. But again, it captures more water than was there previously. So that has been installed per the request of the abutters and some of the conversations with the developer has been peer reviewed by your peer reviewer. And, you know, in our opinion and in theirs, it complies with the permit and really what should be there.
And where does that pipe outflow to,
Um,
or daylight to, I should say?
Yeah, go back to this sheet. Did that change over?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the property line of the Dunderdales.
Mhm.
Comes along this way, and it discharges around this point right over here. And then you can see the contours just come straight down in this direction. So it ultimately would go to the roadway, to this catch basin here.
And, you know, I can't see all the contour lines and so forth, but with the pipe daylights, does that water then make it down the hill to that drainage, or does
Yes.
it find its way onto 122?
No, the water, once it comes around the corner, you know, the topography is such that's coming down in this direction. You can see the contours are kind of, you know, pretty much perpendicular with that lot line. So once it comes around the corner, that water would head down in this direction.
Mhm.
That's not the water that I'm concerned about. It's not even, it's coming into our lot before the start of that drain. And I just want to mention that, you know, we're relying on the calculations from an engineering plan for that stormwater management plan that's been modified several times to address water runoff onto abutting properties. There was an issue with water running off of 124 onto 126 and onto 126A. I know that Melissa, you had mentioned, I think that was the swale and the drain that you had mentioned it in an email the other day about a swale and a drain that was mentioned by I think it was Mr. Wang. He was an engineer, and they put that one in over between 126 and 126A. So that was a swale and a drain that went in there. And if you were to come down onto the road, you would see that there were two drains, one that was between 134 and 126 that went in. So Brendan put that one in. He put the one in between 126A and 126. There were swales that brought the water behind the house because it was all coming off 124, and they directed the water into these backyards. And they constructed the swales and they constructed drains so that the water went down into the ground. And if you come down onto the road today, you'll see that there's not that much water coming out onto the road. But if you take a look at where 124 lot starts, you'll see that there's still a lot of water coming down onto the road. So we know that there have been lots of corrections to the original plan, and we're still having water trespass. And it's my understanding from the zoning code that with stormwater and erosion control, that it requires new development and redevelopment and all land conversion activities to maintain an after development runoff characteristic as equal to or less than pre-development runoff characteristics. And we've never seen this much water come onto our properties. So that's the reality. It's not the calculations. And
So
I
you
understand-
mentioned-
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, you mentioned that as you started, you know, your comments here, just the last set of comments, that the water that you're receiving is not coming from that stone drain picture that we just viewed. It's coming from someplace else. Can you share where that's coming from?
So if you looked at that drain at the very end of the stockade fence going towards 120, that water is coming off the hill there.
John, can you put that
And-
picture back up?
And so it's right in between. So some of that water goes onto my land and some of it goes on to Melissa DeCosta's land right next door, and it streams down the hill, and that water does not make it to the drain. So it's like,
Sorry, the picture of the actual stone drain, the photo.
Oh, yeah. Hold on one second. Let me just find that.
So,
It would be at the
Thunderdale,
end of
are you
this
talking
photo.
about that?
The far
So
end.
if you look at the far
Yeah.
end, up at the end of the stockade fence, up
Yep.
there,
Yep. Water's coming right down through there.
Yeah, and I think I can speak to that if I could. So again, as I started, I think this Thunderdale had mentioned it. I mean, the what's required, and again, this is what was on the plans that were designed and reviewed by the commission's peer reviewer. We have to essentially match or provide less water than exists under the existing conditions. We can't increase it. It does not say that you have to stop all water from leaving your property. That's really impossible. You know, if you think about it, when you're on a hill, you can't capture it all on site. You just can't make it worse and add
yeah,
more
I don't think
water.
anybody is arguing that point or requirement.
Yeah.
Right.
So again, and I apologize. So there absolutely is water that comes from 124 to the properties down below. It certainly does under the proposed or the current conditions, as it did to the pre-development conditions. You know, all we've done is add the swale in here to go above and beyond what was already done. But there is absolutely water that will come down in this area over here. We're not refuting that at all, but it's water that was coming down that area previously.
No, not to that extent. We've never had water come into our backyard, fill up around our pool. I don't know if Melissa's on, but Melissa has a stream that goes right through her backyard out into the front yard. And I sent you video of it. I don't know if anyone wants to play it. It was in, it's not in that one, but I've sent it out a couple of times to the commission. I could pull it up on, it's on YouTube.
Right. Yeah, and I think those videos were during construction.
So
No,
let
not
me-
the motions one. No, those were this year.
So do you by chance have any videos of any sort of inundation of water that occurred during the rainstorms just before Christmas?
I have some from August. That was the last
Yep.
time that I've really been up there. A lot of stuff has happened at night and I'm not getting up in my pajamas to go out and film water coming
Well,
down.
you don't have to go when it's dark. It was,
No, that's
it was
when it's been
daylight when the
raining,
rain was coming down. I
unfortunately.
went up there.
Yeah, I have August. I have August.
right.
I have August
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, I was curious about the the very heavy rainstorm we had on that Thursday and Friday right before the Christmas holiday. Because I actually drove up there to see if how the roadway was doing and that sort of thing. And I would have been very curious to see what you had for inundation of water coming from this lot into your backyard as you've described during that rainstorm. That'd be very interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I didn't
Okay.
have anything around Christmas time. It's too busy. So.
Just so the commission is aware, the homeowner was installing a new pool during that time as well. So there was some sediment and erosion that we did address that was coming from this lot. It was separate from Brendan Homes. So this project, the pool project is separate. So there was an erosional issue and I did meet out with Lisa and Melissa to address this. The homeowner was very responsible and responsive, I should say, and seeded that slope and put erosion controls and put mats down for a little bit. So there was a problem for a little while. It wasn't from Brendan Homes or the original construction. It was from the homeowner and the new pool installation.
But the pool's not back there. The pool's behind their house.
Yeah, they had done some.
So, it shouldn't be impacting the topography of the land, because now, if that's the case, there's water coming onto our land. So honestly, that French drain probably should have extended across to the back of 120. And it shouldn't have stopped at just behind our house where they put up the stockade fence.
Yeah, so I have two questions that I have left. One is it all stabilized up there now?
There's grass back there. I don't know if you call that stabilized, if there's still water coming down through. So I guess you would call that stabilized, right? There's grass. I can't see
Yeah.
to the left. I can see it. I can't see what's directly behind.
Besides some minor, I think they've stopped their pool project for a little bit. So there's some just material that's stationed there that is behind the house on the opposite side of where we're talking about. But that area has been stabilized, yes.
Actually, there's a big pile of dirt directly behind the fence at the very top of the hill. So I don't know if water's taking silt down the grass to the back of the fence. But there is a big pile of dirt back there, but it's at the very back of the lot where it's a pretty steep slope coming into that pile of dirt.
So the pool construction is still going on, Melissa?
Correct.
So there's still disturbance up in the back?
They did, I think, they did do some temporary stabilization. I'm not sure what their plan is for finalizing the pool. I think they were going to do a pool house or whatnot. Along that stockade fence, they had done some disruption. I think they had some extra material. And so that original area in that time period was unstable, but since then has stabilized.
So the drainage on that part of the land has changed.
Well, I mean, the crux of the problem is water runs downhill. Not to be cute or callous, but that's just a fact, right? It's what gravity does. And the other question I have, I think, for Bowler Engineering is even though you meet the requirement of runoff not exceeding, or I should say, meeting or being reduced from, pre-construction levels, typically, that water runoff is, nature's flow, right? After you do your building and construction, even though that flow may not be increased, and it is in fact decreased, has that flow now made its way to a particular point where it's increased in a particular area versus it being just sort of spread out?
No, it's a good question. So beyond looking at the volume and the rates, we have to also look at the design points. We need to make sure those volumes and rates match at a location. So that is what we've done. We've matched the contours as they existed. So we're not creating a point source discharge where one did not exist previously. The water is traveling in the same location as it did before. It was just really a hill that flows down. And again, I know I said it, but I just do want to reiterate it. I know that everything really it's been a long process. Everything really was done. It was designed. It was reviewed by your peer reviewer, and every comment they've had has been addressed. We've then gone above and beyond that by adding this swale. I think Brendan, and to his credit, has done everything that has been asked of him through this process, and has tried to be as accommodating as he can. But this really does meet and exceed what was approved when we decided to add the swale in as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's impacting our property. And there's a significant flow coming down just before it even gets to that drain.
Yep, I hear what you're saying. Ben, were you going to say something? You look like you were going to take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I was going to make just a comment that our stormwater management bylaw, part of the zoning bylaw, requires, as we've said a number of times, that post-construction flows be equal to or less than pre-construction flows, and volumes for that matter. But it also references the DEP stormwater management guidelines, and in doing so, it sort of dictates the techniques that are used to measure those things. The engineering tools, the engineering techniques that are used to measure these flows. And both the applicant and the commission are sort of bound by these techniques. That's what the role of Fuss and O'Neill was to, ensure that the applicant used these appropriate engineering techniques. I feel like our flexibility here is limited. We are also required to accept these techniques by our own bylaw. So that was just going to be my comment.
Yeah, okay.
May I just address that too? I was just looking at the storm management plan, and before all the buildings started, I mean, please remember there was a lot of trees on the side of the hill. They came in and they clear cut that lot. And I think they did that even before the plan was approved. And I think it's noted in that plan, and I'm trying to find it because
This property and the one across the street was an after the fact filing, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there were trees everywhere. And, I mean, I've walked up through, I look at my trees. The trees capture the rain. It brings it down the trunk, takes it down into the ground. So the flow of water has changed significantly off the pitch behind us. And so at this point now, I mean, we still have a big flow of water coming down off the hill, and something needs to be addressed. It's impacting our land. It's impacting our properties.
Is that the S&P permit was issued for the construction of the home on that, lot, whatever, 124 Deerfoot. And since the home has been built, there's now a project of a swimming pool that's going in that is still under construction, still things going on with respect to that. We do have at our disposal enforcement order in our back pocket that if we find that the swimming pool work and or pool house work or whatever else they're doing there, even though that it doesn't trigger, any of our bylaws or whatnot, is impacting, we do have the ability to utilize that as a tool here to address any ongoing issues. I think I'm in solid ground there. I don't know if others have any opinion, but I think I am. So I'm inclined to not complicate this as we've complicated some other, projects in town. I'm going to name Ken's Foods is one of them, where we have compounded permit on permit on permit, and trying to unravel that becomes a very difficult task for everyone. That I'm inclined to move forward with the COC for this lot in the house, and watch very closely the work that's going on with the pool and any work that's going on in the backyard with respect to any sort of violations of work or water or issues that could impact the abutters. That's kind of where I'm falling on this one. The engineering it holds up, the review process for the engineering holds up, but the documented detail back in August of when a lot of construction was going on with the pool, and there was inundation of water onto the abutter's property, is months old. And there is some stabilization up there, but there is going to be continued ongoing work with respect to the pool and any sort of other landscaping and pool house going on in the spring, maybe when they pick things up. So that is warrants monitoring, in my opinion, and very close monitoring to make sure that that's mitigated in terms of any sort of runoff potential that's inundating the abutters.
So whose responsibility is that? Is that the building department? Is that the Conservation Commission? Is it a combination of the two? I still don't quite understand what the certificate of completion, if you give that to them, will that take something away from our ability for remedy here?
No,
That's my concern.
no, it doesn't. The only thing the COC does is it relieves the deeded lot of any sort of burden, if you will. And in a lot of cases, people forget to go off and get COCs, and they refinance, they sell. There's all kinds of things that happen. If you have a very cognizant lawyer that's doing a good job on the title search, might find that there's a outstanding notice of intent that has expired on a particular lot, and we'll say, hey, the bank wants to get this cleaned up. But we have been, as a commission, over the last few years, proactively going out and letting people know that they've got outstanding issues with respect to their property, that they might want to come in and ask for COC. And sometimes the house has been sold a couple of times, the people don't understand what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the whole process of the Wetlands Protection Act, the notice of intent, and getting the COC at the end, the requirement for getting that COC is rather loosely tracked, to be quite frank.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't something that people aggressively go after in all cases. Now, if the COC is required for a roadway because of work that was done, typically that is aggressively sought after so that the road can become, part of the public DPW rather responsibility. But issuing that in no way will relinquish any burden on that homeowner of dumping water on your property.
So is it the Conservation Commission that will oversee the pool construction, the pool house construction, where that big pile of dirt is going eventually on the lot, and how it will impact the flow of water onto our lot?
Yes,
onto our lots?
I will take that on. Absolutely. And don't quote me on the pool house. I can't remember for sure, but it's at least, yeah.
I just threw that out because, pools
just
get
so Lisa knows. Yeah. But yes,
skirts and patios
and I've been in contact with the homeowner as well, and he understands the concerns of the building properties, and is aware to keep up erosion controls when work does start back up. I will send out a note to him to make sure that there's a wattle around that stockpile. I think there was last time when me and Joey went out, but I'll double check. And if not, have that installed. But other than that, we will follow the construction. Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I just assumed that they probably had erosion control protection up there.
They did.
It might have been a bad assumption on my part, but
no, they definitely did. The last time I was up there, I'll just verify that it still is there.
And how about maintenance of that swale French drain? Is that going to be written in, and will the owners be aware that they need to keep that clean, and there's a chance that, it may fail at some point?
Yep. So Bowler is going to update that final O&M plan. They've already agreed to do so. They just want to make sure there wasn't anything coming out of tonight, to include that swale as well as ongoing maintenance. So I now include operation and maintenance plans at the end of any certificate of compliance, and those gets recorded at the Worcester Registry of Deeds. A copy will also go to the homeowner, and I will doubly verify with him and send it directly to him as well, just to make sure that he's aware of the annual maintenance.
And will you send me a copy of it?
The O&M, the operation maintenance plan? Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
any other comments or questions from anyone? So I'm inclined to ask for a motion to request a COC for 124 Deerfoot Road.
I'll make the motion. So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate all your time and work.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Melissa, I see now we have S&P bylaw and regulations update changes in town meeting warrant.
Yes. Okay. So, sorry, I'm just moving people over. Give me 1 second. I've been trying my darndest to get town council to give us a real response on what to do with the appeals, as that is the main thing that is outstanding. So I did get some comments today. So this stems from about a month ago when after our December meeting, I put in that request on, how should we be approaching the appeals? Are there pros and cons to taking it out of the zoning code? What are they? Is there kind of a downside to taking it out, or is there a better plus side than kind of we've thought of? Or if we leave it in the zoning code, Mimi from planning was nice enough to send me one of their phrases that they have for their appeals for things that are in the zoning code, just kind of stating that it would just go to the appropriate court of competent jurisdiction. So it would still be in the zoning code, but it does kind of take away the appeals from going to the zoning board of appeals, and instead would go to, the Superior Court or whatnot. On the flip side, we could take it out of the zoning code, and then the language would remain as the appeal goes to Chapter 249, Section 4, which is basically to Superior Court. So what I really wanted to understand from town council that I did not get an answer on is what the series of events should happen. So I think we need to make the one final decision tonight of removing from the zoning code or not, and that will dictate what the appeal language is, because we really should finalize this document tonight so I can get this to the select board, who can then get it to planning for the public hearing process. Because it's a zoning code, the planning board needs to have a public hearing. But my question to town council was, in which, if we're removing the zoning code, do we have planning vote on the amendment, on removing it from the zoning code, or both? And I did not get an answer from that, so I'm still a little confused. I think it would, I don't know. I don't know which way it would go or which way is easiest, so I'm still hoping to figure that out, because I think the recommendation maybe be the same from planning, but the intent of the recommendation from planning would be very different based on which meeting article they're submitting their opinion for. So I think it all comes down to the long last decision of, are we taking it out of zoning code or are we leaving it? That's the fundamental question for tonight.
And why is there a dependency on planning?
Because it's in the zoning code. So any changes to the zoning code requires a public hearing from planning. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it's just the timing. It's just getting so close because town meeting's already in March. So try and get their recommendation printed in the warrant is always more favorable than them stating it at town meeting. So we are trying to get this in for the, I think, February 6th meeting, I think, of planning board, so that, because they have to publish it, so many times in the paper beforehand, et cetera, kind of like we do. So I think the fundamental question is, what do we want to do with the zoning code? We leave it in the zoning code and we change just where the appeals go to, or we remove it from the zoning code and then automatically the appeal goes to Superior Court. If we remove it from the zoning code, kind of the basis from that was that the zoning enforcement officer couldn't waive the zoning bylaw or the SMP bylaw, which has happened in the past. It's not really a current concern, but you never know who would be the building commissioner or zoning enforcement officer in the future. I think that was the main thing that we had identified as kind of the reasoning to taking it out of the zoning code, besides the appeals to the ZBA, which, they typically don't have much experience in stormwater management permits.
Well, there's that, and then there's the fact that the building officer, right,
Mhm.
is responsible for zoning code enforcement.
Yep.
And they're not necessarily interested in dealing with stormwater or water.
Right.
Right. They're more interested in making sure your 2x4s are the right space apart.
Yep.
Or whatever else they have to do. I mean, what we're talking about is solving half of what we have as a perceived problem, not all of it.
What would the other half be?
Well, if you take it out of the zoning code, then the building inspector isn't responsible for enforcing it.
Oh, already
Right.
our enforcement is the commission, but they could technically do their own enforcement. So the enforcement section in the bylaw does state the commission or its authorized agent in the town of Southborough shall have the power and duty to enforce this bylaw.
But we've had in the past, we've had the building inspector waive it.
Yep.
That took the power away from us.
Right.
And I think that was one of the things that we wanted to address.
Correct.
That being one, and the other one is where the appeal went to. So if we leave it in the zoning code,
Oh, I
and we
see. The
change-
half. I get it.
right,
Okay.
when we change who the appeal goes to, we've solved half of what we perceived as our total problem is.
I understand what you're saying. Okay.
I agree with you, Mark. I will say, just sort of watching from the sidelines, Melissa, I'm beginning to feel a little frustrated with the almost complete lack of response from town council. And I'm not trying to necessarily throw the blame on town council. I don't know what is causing that to happen, but even getting an email today at 4:15. Oh, and by the way, if you're moving it from zoning, you'll also have to have a planning board hearing. I mean, we're down to the wire at this point, and I know you struggled to get a meeting arranged, and it sounds like that never actually happened. So a couple of things here. I just wanted to sort of vent my frustration at that. This is a very legitimate need for legal services that we have here, and it needs to we need the help here. And then second, because it's getting so down to the wire, I think we should not plan on this at this point, but leave ourselves open to the possibility that going into town meeting not fully prepared, or not sure if we've left holes in our proposal because of lack of legal advice, I think would be a mistake. If we had to wait until a fall town meeting because of that, it would be regrettable, but better than the alternative, I guess, is what I would say. Have you heard anything from, for instance, Mark Purple regarding actually being able to meet with the town council or get an actual legal analysis of the situation?
No, there's the only emails I got, you were copied on, to try and get that meeting together. I think he did end up having office hours, but I never got confirmation, or we didn't get an email that they were being, for sure being held, because it was the week before Christmas, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I've been struggling trying to get, what I thought was a very simple, straightforward answer.
So Ben, as I was sitting here and the remarks you just made was exactly what I was thinking, that, going into town meeting and not being completely prepared with all of our I's dotted and T's crossed would not be a good thing.
Because we've seen it in the past, somebody goes in and we've seen it fairly recently, unfortunately. Someone goes in not very well prepared, they haven't laid the groundwork, and they get turned down, and that sort of poisons the well for a period of time afterwards. I mean,
it sure does.
And I think as a fail-safe, sorry, Ben, if we do decide, that it is better for us to wait till a fall town meeting, we do have the applicability to at least update some of like the NOAA Atlas 14 aspects within the regulations in the meantime. So we couldn't necessarily update the thresholds as a whole, but some of those fundamentals of design standards we can still hit through the regulations, because that just is a meeting of ours, public meeting. So that doesn't require a town meeting.
Yeah.
which, and while we're on that, not necessarily a tangent, but that subject, I would be really strongly in favor of doing that as early as our next meeting, just that it's, no Atlas 14 in particular is I feel is a critical change. And if we can make that simply by holding a public hearing, we can get that taken care of and focus our efforts on, this more substantive reg change.
Yeah, I can work on kind of an intermediary copy to try and get for the next meeting. One of the new bylaws we have in town, we have to have any changes to regulations have to be posted for 14 days prior to acceptance. So I just want to make sure I can get that done by next Thursday. So if I can, then I will post it and we can get that for the next meeting. If not, definitely for the February meeting.
For sure. I mean, and also assuming that's okay with everybody else. I feel strongly about it, but others understand may differ.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in the same camp.
Can do.
And then, is there anything, Melissa, that we could do that you can think of that may help sort of break the logjam here? I understand we went through, with the holidays and so forth, and that always puts a crimp in things. But if there's anything that we can do to help break that logjam,
I think,
say a word.
yeah, I think, Ben, I will probably send a follow-up email tomorrow that I'll probably copy you on again, maybe Mark as well. Just because, yeah, it's been the same questions. We even had an update at the select board, a month ago, and that's where they, were the ones who's like, okay, we'll get town council on it and we'll discuss it. So I was kind of, disappointed to not have the response. I thought the questions were really simple in my opinion. But I think, yeah, I'll try one more time. And if not, I might need the commission, either Mark or maybe Ben to maybe send the email themselves to show that this is kind of high priority for us.
Has there been any acknowledgement of receipt of the questions and, hey, we're working on them?
So I got one response today after trying to follow up again from town council that just stated one sentence: if it is moved out of zoning, the likely avenue to appeal would be per general law 249 section 4, which I had already outlined in my initial request as, okay, if we do this, then it's this one. What I was really asking was why should we not, and what is the process for this? So I did get an answer, but it unfortunately wasn't useful.
They confirmed what you knew.
Yes, exactly.
I guess that is minimally helpful.
Just a bit. But so I will try again tomorrow, if not by Monday, to kind of send home that the commission is really looking to see if we can finish the stormwater bylaw for the, Springtown meeting. But, given that if we don't have an appropriate plan forward, then, we're going to have to go to fall town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll definitely keep you guys abreast of, those conversations. But I just want to verify that that the commission is okay with me moving forward with the submission of the warrant article, as we've discussed, in moving it out of the zoning code, and therefore changing the appeals to Superior Court. And I think I've decided we should leave all the definitions within the bylaw. We're not going to touch them. If we need to change definitions, they can be done way more easily in the regulations. And then I think that was really the only aspect of it. So I will keep you guys updated, either me or Laura, in the next couple weeks to make sure to let you know what the status is. I'm hoping that we can get, planning public hearings. And if so, I'll let you guys know. I think that I would appreciate if I can have a member of the commission attend one of the public hearings with me at planning for those. I don't expect it to be a large hall. I think our reasonings for the change of the thresholds are very obvious and very consistent with kind of the overall goals of the planning board as well. So I'm hopeful that we can at least get through planning a lot easier than we can get through town council.
Yeah, so I guess I would say I would hesitate putting it in the warrant article if we're not ready to take it to town meeting.
Yes.
right? Because I wouldn't want to have it in there and then have to go and say, oh, never mind, we're going to withdraw this and then put it back in later, because that would not be a good view either.
Right. Yeah. So I think I should know probably by Tuesday if this path forward is
Okay.
going to work out for us or not. And I will definitely let you know as soon as possible.
All right.
Because I would agree. I don't want to rush this and it's getting a little dicey already. So I'd rather us be clean cut, ready for presentations.
Yeah. Perfect.
Sounds like a plan.
Anybody else have any comments? Kevin, Elizabeth? No.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay. All right. Any other business, Melissa?
I have a couple very quickly. Just so you know, Fayetteville Hall, which is 4042 Central Street, has begun construction. They did not meet with Karina, the town planner, yesterday because I believe there's going to be some minor changes to the parking area. And Karina did reiterate for me that if there are changes, does need to be reviewed and approved by the commission because we have both an order of conditions and a stormwater management permit. They're going through minor site plan, I believe, with planning because it's now going to be a historical museum. So it's a change of use. And that's, so I'm going to be kind of keeping my eye on that one. I'd recommend you
Oh,
guys.
it's not going to be a craft brewery? Oh, shucks.
No, yeah, I know. So sorry. And then for 84 Main Street, just a quick update. I have not received anything from our initial request for the as-built in terms of that restrictive covenant area. I'm following up with Michael Weishan, who's now kind of been the representative for John Deli Priscoli. I've also been speaking with Grant Farrington from Historical as they've been having some concerns as well. So I may meet with Grant and Kevin Miller, who's the chair, either individually, just the three of us, or even a joint meeting between Historical and Concom. And I'm hopeful that we can kind of get one concise list of unresolved issues. They having some concerns about finding plans, I'll say, and what was approved versus what hasn't been approved by Historical. So I think we're on a path forward that Concom and Historical Commission seem to be kind of joining up to maybe have a joint front on this and kind of the issues at the property and just making sure we're in compliance with the various restrictive covenants on this property and making sure we have them all. So I will keep you guys updated on that, but I'm very thankful that Grant reached out and that, that communication has been open. So I think that's a good sign. I think United Front would be great. And then for Lorenzo Drive, I've just been requesting some additional erosion controls. There's a lot of disturbed soil without kind of wattles along the curbs of the roadway. So there's been kind of some plumes and muddy water coming down. So they're on that as well. And otherwise, for Breakneck Hill, I don't know how I want to go about this. So I know that Miss Fallon did go to public comment at the select board on Tuesday and raise some of her concerns, mostly about the liability, which I definitely understand. So far, she does understand that there's been testing and she's done testing on her property as well. There hasn't been anything concerning that's arisen from both our tests, from the 90s to now, and hers that she's done. But she's concerned with kind of the town and potential, contamination while things happen, which is understandable. She was a little concerned in saying that we, kind of were pushing her hand a little bit. I did go back kind of through my emails and I reminded myself that I sent this to her on February 8th of last year. So it's been almost a year that we've been working on just the access agreement. And that's a pretty long time. So I believe town council is going to talk with DEP tomorrow, if they haven't already today, to kind of discuss that aspect because the access agreement as she signed it probably won't be suggested that the select board sign that as well. So we're kind of still stuck at a standstill and we are kind of getting down to the wire, and we were kind of in December urging her to make a decision either way, not asking her to sign, not asking her to not sign, but just letting us know which way, because we really need to make this cleanup plan. We really need a number for town meeting so that we can stay on track. So we're still trying. We still have Taylor from TRC ready at any second's notice as soon as we get this access agreement or knowledge to just start this cleanup plan and try and get us there. So I will definitely keep you updated. All of that kind of just happened today. So I'll see what town council comes back with, but I'm assuming I probably won't have anything till early next week. And then the only other random thing I have is the town is in compliance with their floodplain and wetlands overlay district bylaw. And the FEMA has nicely let us know. And since we deal with permitting for wetlands and floodplain, guess who gets to administer this bylaw? The bylaw already exists, but is very insufficient. It does not require anything additional of the commission. It's a little confusing because it does state that a permit is needed, but it's not a new permit. As long as some permit, which could be a building permit, is issued, and it's only for any structures within a floodplain, which we typically don't approve anyways. And it also just, so I have put in there as the conservation agent is the administrator of this overlay, which just means that I keep track, of any properties that have structures or that pull a building permit to put a structure within a floodplain. And also we would be kind of just looking at any map amendments or LOMAs that would come through as the town sign off, kind of just acknowledging that process is happening. So it doesn't change anything for us, but I do want to make you aware is this literally came up in the last week. So I've been writing a new bylaw for us. But it looks like a lot, but it really is just the FEMA basics for the floodplain, the National Flood Insurance Program, that those requirements are greater than what the state has in their laws. So our bylaw needs to be stronger because our state laws aren't good enough. So there's a lot of kind of just basic language that we already are doing, but it's just making sure that the physical words are compliant and we don't get hit by the EPA. So we're going to avoid that. I think that's it.
Okay.
It was
All
a
right.
lot. A lot happened
Yeah.
today.
Busy day after the holidays.
Yep. Welcome back. Happy New Year.
All right. I guess with that, we can adjourn.
Sure can.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Osmodo.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Go.
Night all.
See you in 3 weeks. We'll do it again.